This video is brought to you by Campfire.
I like vanilla. On an unrelated note, let's write an everyman protagonist for our story. The everyman, for when the writer is too lazy to write an actual character. The easy mode of writing. Terrible writing advice is all about taking shortcuts, which makes the everyman a perfect fit for the treasured protagonist slot of my story. Just write an average person. Now, the only problem I can see is that writers tend to be freaking weirdos on a good day, so writing an average person can be a bit more tricky than it looks. But fear not, as I can show you what the normies want. The everyman is a pretty broad archetype that can fit into just about any genre with a bit of finagling. Since they have a pretty mundane perspective, that makes it fairly easy for the audience to identify with them. In fact, the audience projecting onto the everyman is a guarantee no matter how shallow the character is written. This frees the writer's creative resources to focus on more important things, like taking risky loans for my future indoor pool that I'll be able to afford after my first advance. Rather than see the everyman as a strategic addition to the story, chosen specifically to contrast with the more colorful elements of the setting, highlight their character growth by demonstrating their humble origin, or to be used as a deconstruction by showing how poorly such a character would fare if thrown into a specific genre. Instead, the everyman should be thought of as shorthand for, I needed a protagonist I didn't have to think too hard about. This means that the everyman is free to be boring. Like, really boring. Like, this guy's favorite hobby is collecting chewed eraser tips boring. So boring that watching paint dry feels like skydiving in comparison to reading about this guy. So boring that I would rather watch a 72-hour documentary on the history of stamp collecting than spend another page with this guy. So boring that the concept of boredom itself seems like a distant dream that was long ago lost now that I'm trapped in the unending dull agony of having to read about boring McEveryman and his boring boredom of trudging through the endless beige trenches of utter and complete tedium. In this case, a writer will know their job has been done right if the audience is begging for the story to focus on anything else other than the protagonist. Remember, there is no difference between subtle characterization and no characterization. No point in using the everyman's more subdued personality to highlight a more colorful cast of secondary characters. Another useful function of the everyman protagonist is to have everything explained to them all the time. This gives the writer a perfect excuse to dump exposition onto the audience, since the everyman, being average and thus uninformed, must have aspects of the setting explained to them. And like all exposition dumps, you can tell it's one because all characterization ceases the moment the dump begins. Never have the everyman express an emotion during the explanation, like concern, fear, boredom, or confusion. This approach is dangerously close to characterization, nor should a writer use an everyman's outsider perspective to point out something a setting native would have never have thought of or considered, nor consider having the everyman just learn by doing something. Now, what if a writer wants the everyman to also be a vehicle for power fantasy? Then just have the everyman develop into a Superman. In fact, a lot of comic book everyman characters have a superhero persona. Could this journey from everyman to Superman be done by either a slow build-up in order to make the Superman status feel earned, or perhaps the everyman finds their Superman status thrust upon them suddenly, forcing them to adapt as a focal point of conflict? Actually, the best option is to cheat and have the character discard their everyman status as soon as they become a Superman. That way, we get the audience investment cheaply and without wasting a lot of time, and then get to the power fantasy stuff ASAP. Yeah, no one will see through that. Besides, what would an everyman do without awesome powers? See, that won't work because having a character use something other than violent force to solve all problems is like hard. Why would the audience want to see the character they are projecting onto use their courage and humble outlook to outwit a far more powerful and dangerous foe, especially if that foe underestimates them? The audience must be constantly told that unlimited unchecked power solves all problems, not critical thinking skills, determination, and creativity. I mean, could you imagine a beloved fantasy novel series that ends with the Dark Lord being defeated not by some great warrior, but by a bunch of short dudes with hairy feet? That would be embarrassing and most certainly not turn into a classic. Now I must cover the most important part of the everyman, their stupidity. Most people are stupid, especially compared to my genius. Therefore, it's a pretty safe move to also make the everyman stupid as well. In fact, lean into this as their only character trait. Make them so stupid that they really shouldn't be able to function at all. Yeah, the audience will identify with that. Not only that, but make sure the story also celebrates this stupidity. We should all strive to rid ourselves of intelligence because smart people are bad because being smart makes you evil. This stupidity also has the dual role of making sure the everyman will take actions that most people would never do given their mastery of basic risk-return analysis and rudimentary pattern recognition. This frees the writer to use the everyman's ignorance to advance the plot, miss key clues that could resolve the plot early, and otherwise fail to take actions that would undo an easily solvable conflict. And the audience will never get tired of the everyman acting stupid or express frustration at their near constant ineptitude. I mean, they're supposed to identify with the everyman. How could the audience get frustrated with them? In fact, why not lean into this further? Not only is the everyman stupid, but he's also a loser. It's time for the writer to unleash their cynical hatred of the audience by insulting their surrogate. Make the everyman a loser. Nothing goes his way. Everything is his fault, and he's an idiot. Exactly how the audience wants to see themselves. Is this loser status merely a starting point for character development? No, it's just there so I can perpetuate American culture's bizarre obsession with its stark winner-loser binary. Because the mark of maturity is using a stock bully catchphrase from the early 90s unironically. Now, how do side characters feel about this steaming pile of vanilla that is somehow central to the world's salvation in spite of having zero redeeming qualities, talent, or work ethic? Will they crack under the pressure of a tremendous time crunch as they are forced to cram in a lifetime of training into the everyman to get him ready to face the Dark Lord? Or will the everyman lose it instead now that he has actual expectations put upon him for the first time in his life? Nah, the superheroes surrounding this plain dude will just never comment on him or generate any meaningful conflict. It's almost like the everyman is just a cameraman for the audience. While most of the other characters won't notice the everyman, all of the women sure will. Nothing gets the ladies excited quite like a guy without any defining features, personality, or prospects. Even the everyman gets a love triangle. I mean, sometimes. Other times it's more like a love battle royale. The pain of having too many romantic choices. Clearly, this is a problem that most people can relate to. Just like moping. People love characters who mope all the time. Now, most normal people, when exposed to high-stress situations without proper training, simply shut down at best. Usually they panic and make things worse. However, when writing an everyman, a writer has only two real choices. Either the everyman handles everything flawlessly and simply breezes through the insanity without any explanation, or they start endlessly moping way outside the audience's patience zone. A writer basically only gets one good panic scene, and after that the audience expects the everyman to get a handle on the situation. But I think I'm going to push that by having the everyman be extra worthless for most of the story. Maybe I should show how the everyman is gradually acclimating to this new life of adventure in order to have a smooth transition and not irritate the audience with too much whining. No, I like my melodrama at the cost of character development, as it should be. The everyman has a lot of utility in storytelling, like a crutch that can be used to hobble through a story on easy mode, rather than utilize the everyman to maximize his potential by having him pull double duty as some combination of foil, newcomer, future leader, heart of the group, or some other function. Instead, use him as an unneeded third wheel. The everyman should exist only because some studio executive thought the audience needed a POV character as lame as they imagined the average moviegoer to be. The best everymen are written not as empathetic and humble individuals who wish to do good and help out in spite of their lack of power. Instead, they should be written by a writer who pours in all of their cynicism and misanthropy into a stock character who is mostly just there to act as a glorified cameraman or as a vehicle for power fantasy. Besides, it has to be an everyman because I have no clue how to write an every woman. This is bad.
Okay, so I know this is going to sound odd coming from me, but this is not as planned. How could it have broke? Unless...
Yes, it appears as though there is a traitor in our ranks, Sir Block.
Me? The traitor could be any one of us. Except for Sir New Guy, of course. He seems the trustworthy sort.
Yeah, you're right. I don't see how it could be him just because he's always cryptically muttering, soon, all the time.
We will set up a final defense line here. I've never seen a battle where both sides can't land a single hit. Worthless. You all are a waste of good radiation. I thought we were being paid in exposure. There it is. The source at long last. Unlimited power and a balanced budget. Oh, and look. This video sponsor Campfire. Not only will I get the source, I will also get Campfire, which is a series of tools to help organize, improve, and showcase your writing, and is used by over 100,000 writers. Utilize character sheets, timelines, detailed relationship webs, and a full manuscript editor that references notes in Campfire right.
Traitor!
In it to win it, son. Or hone your craft in Campfire Learn as a central hub of educational resources. Hi! Campfire Explore lets you share your work with a live community and build a following. Select what parts to share and craft a homepage to present your story. Imperialist dog. Never send boys to do a man's job. Guys, we really need to reconsider.
Creating a Campfire account is free and only pay for the features you need with a flexible pricing structure ranging from monthly subscriptions as low as a few cents a month to affordable lifetime purchases.
And everyone, listen to me for once. I think there's a problem. We can't let the last chain break or...
You thought that this sponsor was yours, but it was I, DL. The Dark Lord.
Well, I guess that reference had to happen eventually.
TWA fans can write better stories faster with Campfire at bit.ly/TWA4-21. Don't forget to use the code TWA21 to get 20% off all lifetime purchases of Campfire modules. Link is in the description below.
You can always count on some things, like smaller streams converging into a roaring river. The desire of many would set me free and bring everything to this point. And so with those desires, I am finally unleashed. This world was made for me.